Trying to get this little bee. It's like a little, I don't know what that is. It's like a little black bumblebee. It's cute. I don't know what it is. Now there's two. Can't get them, but there's two. They don't like me watching them. There's one right there. And the other one is over here somewhere. Keeps popping up out of there. There's flowers down below these flowers. I didn't mean it to turn out that way. It just kind of did. And these elephant ears have got off the hook big. I sort of need to yank those out of there. But I don't know if I do. Well, yeah, I do know what I'm going to do with them. Wanted to show you these real quick. I forget the technical name of them, but they're called grandfather smoking peace pipe. And I got these from a friend of mine back when I lived in Ohio, and he didn't even know what they were. And I didn't find out until, geez, 20 years later what they were. And when I moved, whenever I would move, I would take these with me. And so these are from the original plants that he gave me. And I was working in a garden center up in Ohio, and I ended up giving them to the tropical department that was in the garden center, and she didn't even know what they were, the head of the garden department. And she started multiplying them and selling them. And also, I took them to a rock shop in Big Bend, Texas at one point, where this guy, he mines like quartz rocks and things from the mountains there and in New Mexico, and I gave him some of them. So I'm sure he's got a ton of them by now because they multiply like crazy. And they actually get like hanging babies. These ones don't have that, but I can show you an example. Okay, this is a patchouli plant, you know, the stuff that they get the oil from to make the scented candles. And boy, does that smell good. When it gets really hot and sunny, my whole yard will smell like this. And it just lets off this aroma that's unbelievable. And they're really easy to take cuttings of. But here's one of those grandfather smoking peace pipes. It's really big. But as you can see, it's got a runner off of it here. Goes down, and it's got a hanging baby right here. And they're very beautiful. Came out here and caught him right on the milkweed. Anyways, just a word about my friend that gave me the grandfather smoking peace pipes. He was a registered nurse in Ohio, and he was such a funny person. I mean, he had this long hair, like all curly, just naturally curly, and he had such a handsome face, and he was so hilarious. And just every other sentence out of his mouth, it was just something funny, you know, and he was always very upbeat. And when I met him, he just drank, you know, he'd never tried any drugs or anything. And so I was surprised, like I kind of lost touch with him, and then kind of reconnected with him a few years later, and he had got hooked to all kinds of really hard drugs. And at the time, he was in trouble because he had stole a bunch of money and jewelry and things from his family. And he was telling me that he was going to move to California to get off the drugs. And I told him, I don't know if that's really a good idea, because I mean, there's drugs in California. I mean, and you'll be away from all your friends, your support systems, you know, and everything. So I don't know if that's a good idea. But instead, he moved to California and he kicked his drug habit. And then his mother years later was ailing, and he had to move back to Ohio again to take care of her estate, to get it in order, because his sister had moved her down to Florida, and so somebody had to take care of her things, and so he moved back there. And he never looked back on that problem that he had. I mean, he was so strong. And I remember hearing from him, and I was actually talking to him like the hour that he passed away. I think he was like 62 or something like that when he died. He had pancreatic cancer, and it was from all the alcohol and the drug use. Likely, anyways. But he was joking with me that day, and just making me laugh, and I was making him laugh, and it was just such a shock to find out that an hour later he died. And that day he was worried because he had had a car loan that he'd only halfway paid off, and he had some other outstanding medical bills for his cancer treatment, and he was worried that he was not able to pay those. And I was like, what are you worrying about that for? Because he was telling me that they're saying he's dying, he's got hours to live, and I was telling him, well, don't give up, and don't, take that with a grain of salt, just do the best you can to stay strong. But then he died like an hour later. But I was really proud of him because he overcame that drug problem. I mean, it takes a really strong person to do something like that. And I mean, in the midst of all of that, he lost everything. He lost his vehicle, he lost his house. It was paid off, by the way. It was a beautiful brick house. He lost that, and he was living in this little tiny apartment. And that's when I went to visit him, and he gave me those plans. And I had no idea at that time that he was on drugs. He just told me he was having financial problems, and he borrowed like $10 off of me just to get some food. And I really miss him. But I've carried those plants with me everywhere that I've gone. And there's really no time I ever look at them and I don't think of him. A little more about those grandfather smoking peace pipe plants. You can break a piece off of them at the bottom of what looks like a flower, the plant itself. And you don't even need the roots. You can break a piece off of one of the runners, or you can pop a baby off. Just kind of like spider plants. If you've ever had spider plants, they're the same way. They're really characteristically the same now that I think of it. Very similar in the way that they grow and they hang down like they do. Yeah. So if you know about that, and you just pop them in some dirt, and I've given many of those away. And you can order them online from at least one source. I saw, if you just Google the name, Grandfather Smoking Peace Pipe, this woman has a website up, and that's actually how I found them. Motorcycle. I hope that's not here. I don't think it is. Actually, it's not a motorcycle, it's just a truck with a really loud exhaust. But this woman has a website up, and that's actually how I found out what they were. Is she was on a Facebook page about plants, and I was too, and she had one of those plants up as her profile photo. And I contacted her and I said, what are these? I've had these plants for over 20 years and I don't know what they are. And she told me the technical name, and then showed me her website where she sells them, and so that was kind of exciting. I finally, after all that time, figured out what they were.